back. Now what we are going to do is we are going to start the topic on the modes in which heat gets transferred, right? In different objects, like for example in solids, the mode of transfer is totally different from the mode of transfer of heat that takes place in maybe gases or air. So in solids, the heat gets transferred, right, from a hot object to a cold object, or from one end of a, like for example, this is a solid, a steel. So if I put this end over the flame, then, right, the flame is hot, this is cold, so there is a transfer of heat then to this, so the molecules over here get heated and throughout the heat will get transferred from one end to the other. So in this solid, the heat energy gets transferred from the hotter end towards the colder end. Finally, here it will get hot and you won't be able to hold it, but that takes place by conduction. So in solids, heat gets transferred from a cold object to a hot object, or from a hot object towards a colder end, right? That is by the mode of conduction. So conduction is the mode of transfer of heat energy in solid substances. You must have observed this when you hold a spoon over a flame, right? If you are holding the spoon here in this part and you are holding the spoon over a flame, right? If this is held over a flame, this is the burner. So if you are holding the spoon, after some time the heat energy gets transferred from the molecules. All this is made up of millions and millions of molecules, right? This is made up of millions everywhere. So a lot of molecules are there. So what happens when the heat touches these molecules are already in a state of motion inside. But when the heat energy is received by these molecules, they start vibrating faster and faster, and in the process they collide with the adjacent molecules and they transfer the heat energy from one molecule to the other. These molecules will not migrate from here to here. The molecules will keep vibrating about their positions, and in that way they will collide with the adjacent molecules and they will transfer the thermal energy from one molecule to the other. In this way, the heat energy gets transferred from molecules over here to the molecules over here, but the molecules over here will remain where they are. They will only transfer the heat by vibrating and colliding with the adjacent molecules. They will transfer the heat energy, right? So conduction is a process. Basically, you can see over here I have written transfer of heat takes place through three processes. What are the three processes? Conduction, this takes place in solids. Then you have convection, you will see in liquids, right? And even in air, sometimes convection is also there with air. So transfer of heat by convection is in fluids. Anything that flows is called a fluid, right? Solids do not flow, solid is not a fluid. Air, gas and what you call liquids, they are fluids because they flow, right? So convection normally takes place in fluids. Radiation also takes place mainly in air. We will see where radiation takes place when we come to the topic of radiation. Right now let us focus our attention on conduction, right? So conduction occurs when two objects of different temperatures are in contact with each other. Now here there is a flame which is hot and the spoon that is cold, right? So there is a transfer of heat energy from the flame to the cold spoon, and then in the spoon the molecules which receive heat energy, they start vibrating very fast and they gain more thermal energy. When they vibrate, they collide with the adjacent molecules and they transfer the heat throughout from the hot end to the cold end. The heat energy gets transferred, right? So that is how conduction takes place in solids. So matter is made up of molecules. In solids, these molecules are very, very closely packed. So if you look at in solids, the molecules, supposing this is a piece of a solid, so the molecules are very closely packed to one another. Very, very closely. That means the intermolecular distance is very, very less in solid. So they start vibrating, and when they vibrate, they pass on their thermal energy to the adjacent molecules. And that's how the heat gets transferred from one end to the other. Supposing I put this over a flame, then the molecules over here will start vibrating. Molecules in this position will start vibrating because they are over the flame. So there is a transfer of thermal energy from the flame to the molecules over here. They start vibrating with very fast and their thermal energy increases, they collide with the adjacent molecules and transfer their heat energy from themselves to the adjacent molecules. So also these molecules are comparatively colder. So the hotter molecules start vibrating, they get more thermal energy and they transfer the heat energy or thermal energy from themselves to the adjacent colder molecules. The colder molecules will then start vibrating faster. They will then gain more thermal energy and transfer the gain thermal energy to the adjacent molecules. That's how heat gets transferred from one end to the other by conduction. So when a solid is heated, the molecules near the source of heat or fire, they gain thermal energy and begin to vibrate faster. These molecules collide with the colder, slower molecules and they transfer some thermal energy to the colder molecules which are near them. But I told you, please remember, during conduction, the molecules don't migrate from one end to the other. They remain where they are, they vibrate and they transfer their energy, but they do not come from here to here. So that is very important. Right? Energy begins to so the molecules gain energy. So I am reading again. When a solid is heated, the molecules near the source of fire gain thermal energy and begin to vibrate faster. These molecules then collide with the adjacent colder and slower molecules, as a result of which the adjacent colder and slower molecules gain thermal energy, begin to vibrate faster, and the thermal energy gets passed on to the adjacent colder molecules. These then colder and slower molecules also begin to vibrate faster and they transfer their thermal energy again to the next adjacent molecules. In this way, there is a transfer of heat from the hotter end to the colder end by the method of conduction, right? So some thermal energy to them which they gain, right? And they begin to vibrate faster, they become warm till the transfer of heat to the adjacent molecule takes place. This continues until the heat spreads throughout the solid. Thus, in conduction, heat is transferred from one place to the other through the molecules, but without the molecules migrating or without the molecules moving from one end of the conductor to the other. They only vibrate and keep on transferring the energy. That is a very important point in conduction, because in convection, the molecules you will find will migrate and they will transfer the heat throughout that particular substance in convection. But in conduction, there is no migration or movement of molecules from the hotter end to the colder end. They keep on vibrating about their positions and then transferring the energy to adjacent molecules. That's the difference between conduction and the other two methods. So we will now have a look at the method or the mode of transfer of heat by convection and radiation during the next two lectures, right? So please study what is conduction. It is there in your textbook. All what I have written is there in the textbook. I have explained it to you. See that you study and prepare well. Don't waste time. I am confident that you are smart enough, energetic enough, and you will definitely listen to what your sir is saying, right? Thanks, goodbye, take care.